Hello and welcome to another edition of Community Forum. My name is Joseph Feaster. I'm the host of the program. And as I oftentimes say, I bring you important people with important information for those of us who live in Stoughton and in the region. And that is no different today. But the only difference is that my birthday is coming soon. And so you can wish me a happy birthday. But my guest today is a person who really needs no introduction. He completed a unexpired term for selectman. He ran a full term and now is here seeking your support once again in order to remain as a select board member. And that's none other than Selectman Stephen Cavey. So, Selectman, welcome to Community Forum.
Mr. Feaster, thank you very much for having me. Mr. Cohen, also thanks for helping out here. Just before we get on, I do want to be the first one to wish you a very happy birthday coming up.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Just in case there are some people who don't know the great Stephen Cavey, don't know about the great work that you've done as a select board member, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself, what things you have been involved with as a select board member, and why are you running for re-election?
Sure. So for anybody who doesn't already know me, I'll kind of start from the beginning. I've lived in Stoughton since 2007. My wife grew up here. She was born in the Goddard, so she hasn't traveled far. It's like I think 2 blocks from our house. So, but we actually didn't move here because she wasn't necessarily heading back to her hometown. But we looked through the area, throughout the area, and just really fell in love with our options here. It's a great community. It was a great place to start a family, start a life, and I was able to get a nice little cape and enjoy myself. My neighbors are amazing. I really have been so happy here that as the years went by, we definitely, we eventually had a child. We had dogs, and we're really settling in, getting roots. And as my son started getting closer to the age where he would head to school, I became much more observant of what was happening in our town government and got more involved. My background is I don't know, so maybe somewhat unconventional, but my undergraduate studies were done at a school called St. John's College in Annapolis, Maryland, where I had a double major in philosophy and the history of math and sciences, and a double minor in classics and comparative literature. I wound up, even though those are very liberal artsy sort of majors, I actually ended up with a job in accounting, which was, if you told me I was going to become an accountant, I never believed you. But I fell in love with that too. I thought, just getting to understand numbers, getting to sort of understand the relationships. Most of the accounting I've been involved with is with regulated investment companies, which most people are familiar with as mutual funds, essentially. And so understanding the securities laws and the way the tax was also very interesting. While I was doing that, I was also going to night school at Harvard University, and I walked away with a master's degree in management with a focus in finance and controls.
So it sounds like to me, and for one, serving on the select board, all of those educational components that you have would be helpful, particularly the philosophy to deal with what you have to deal with as a select board member, in terms of having that calm spirit will definitely help. And certainly your management background and understanding of finance and accounting, since we deal with budgets, since the select board deals with the budgets. So, having served there, I mean, that's what I'd say. I commend anyone who runs for elective office. I mean, it's a labor of love. That's what it has to be, because it's not a labor of pay since you're unpaid. And you commit a lot of time, both for your meetings, but your off times, attending events, attending meetings, sometimes working on staff issues with the town manager. So why don't you talk about some of the things, and we will get to the why you're running. I may want to end with that, but
Sure.
I know I asked you that, but let's defer that for a minute, and let's just have one understand what it is that you do as a select board member, and more importantly, what did you do during this tenure that you've served and as a selectman?
Yeah, thanks. Being a select board member has really been a wonderful experience and an education for me. as you kind of move up through, let's see, as you gain authority in various ways, the smaller the body is, the more personal responsibility you have to take for your decisions. And sometimes that's a good thing and bad thing. As a town meeting, you maybe could be a little bit, more free with your opinions and just put it out there. But when it's a board of 5 people, you really have to make sure that you're very conscious of the impact that your decisions are going to have on everybody. So the philosophy part of that has really helped, really understanding the scope of our responsibilities and the impact that they have on people's real lives. And so, on the day-to-day, the types of things we'll be involved with could range from as you mentioned before, the town budget, also any sort of capital planning that we're doing, where we're buying equipment or buildings or trying to repair a facility or something along those lines, buy trucks, DPW, or garbage trucks, or whatever it might be. We're involved in budgeting that and sort of understanding what we can afford and what we need. The day-to-day things are also, actually I should say, probably one of our largest responsibilities comes with providing town meeting with a warrant, which includes not only the budget and capital items, but a variety of other really important issues of government, like zoning articles. And zoning is actually probably one of the bigger ones, but there's a great many other possible articles that come in that some require financing and some don't. The union contracts, for example, are all authorized by the select board. And so submitting those to town meeting and providing what really is the most, the highest level of government in our town is town meeting. We're very democratic that way, providing them the opportunity to vote on these things and make the ultimate choice about what gets financed and what doesn't, where the priorities lie, and where they think some things can wait for a little while. There are a lot of other day-to-day things like dangerous dog hearings, or if Verizon was to put a pole on the street, things like that, or street commissioners. So we're also involved in parade permits and licensing of businesses, and allowing them the opportunity to sell food or beer, liquor, wine.
Well, my issue in terms of Verizon was the whole question of power outages, and
Yeah.
I know that the select board did address those. But let me get to, I'm certainly not going to let you get away without asking you some of what I would call some of the hot button issues. They may be hot button for only for me, but I think that it goes beyond that. So I want to just get your take and your position, if you care to, if you mind disclosing it, on a few issues. So let's start with the Park Street water line. In terms of that, has been something that was there with discussion while I was interim town manager, before I was interim town manager, continues to be a discussion. And it seems that it has moved forward with the great work of the town engineer and with the town manager, and of course, along with the select board, and at least moving that to a place where we had to study, we allocated some money, and we're looking at that because it could be an economic engine for the town. Where do you stand on that particular issue, Selectman Cavey?
Yeah, that was a great project, and really I just have to give so much credit to Mark Tisdale, our town engineer. He's been involved with this from the beginning, and he has done a great job of communicating the values of this project and really seeing it through. And a lot of people have honest questions that they were just looking for solid answers to, and he was able to kind of take back that feedback and develop a sort of schedule of information, give people what they need. That was fabulous. As far as the project for the town goes, I think this is going to be one of the most rewarding projects we'll probably have, at least in the time that I will be on the board. It will extend the sewers down Park Street, which for anybody who's familiar with that road, as you head out of the downtown, say towards Brockton, you kind of notice that there are some businesses, but they're spaced out quite far. They're pretty sparse. Some warehouses, and as soon as you hit the Brockton line, suddenly there's all this stuff going on. There's all of these businesses there, and the reason why they were able to do it, and that for us, that all that space is largely unused is because of the fact that there's no sewer down that way. Past the Brockton line there is. So any restaurants, for example, have to have septic systems. And there's not a whole lot of industry that can be done without some sort of access to water and sewer. Sewer being the more important one here. So there are some warehouses, but the things they have to do are very limited.
Like we have Campanelli Drive, which is right there behind Park Street or Route 27, that, if one goes back there and see that industrial park, that would be an ideal, if that connection would be beneficial to them, because they are now connected to Brockton's, not ours. And so Brockton's receiving the revenue and et cetera, et cetera. So that's one. And I hope that, when you talk about Mark Tisdale, great choice in terms of the town engineer. I remember he came as the assistant town engineer and then wanted to remain in that position. He won't let you move him out of that position. That's where he wants to be. So, and he's done great work there. Let me go to my other pet one, and that has been the firehouse, Station 1. I've said I don't understand why this town hasn't been sued by the firemen, but I won't profess to encourage that either. But my issue in terms of the firehouse Station 1 has been an issue before I was interim town manager, after interim town manager, issues going on now. Now, I understand that there's an article being pro-offered, which is talking about trying to find a site for it, which is on land, which is currently be used for school purposes. You can just talk about the firehouse. You don't have to take a position on the article in public if you don't want to now. Yeah. But I know that article is working its way to possibly be on the warrant this coming special town meeting.
Yeah, so we originally had plans to, and really our intentions were to have an article presented to town meeting, this upcoming annual town meeting in May, that would deal with all of the questions surrounding having a fire station. Originally, we had a concept that we might need a public safety building. This was an idea we were definitely entertaining, but nobody on the board is an expert in any of these things. So we really relied on getting the expert advice that, so we put together a public safety building committee, and they've gone through the labor of really figuring out what makes the most sense for the town. They presented some of the information to us, I believe it was in August or September. And we really wanted to, at that point, it made sense for us to really focus like a laser beam on getting a fire station accomplished. And we felt like it was possible to do in the time that we had leading up to the annual town meeting. Unfortunately, it's probably going to take just a little bit longer.
Yeah, and I know that there's some discussion. Yeah, well, and I just, again, because I'm the FBI Feast of Bureau Investigation, so I pay attention to what's going on. There are some who are talking about the Armory, and my understanding was that the Armory was not a appropriate site for a firehouse, particularly the public safety complex, simply because of its distance for the southern part of the town. In terms of, I guess, his response time, and I believe that that's determined by others, not even by, say, the town's rules. Is that your understanding, Selectman Cavey?
In a sense, yes and no, because that location, I guess, as it was explained to me during the review of the plans, the location itself they're really measured on a state level, or actually at a national level, and how quickly fire apparatus can get to any location in the town within 2 minutes and 4 minutes. And so within 2 minutes, you want to be able to reach 40% of the town. Within 8 minutes, you want to be able to reach, greater than 80% of the town. And all of the sites that we are looking at, we exceed those standards, and they are practically identical, which is good. That also leaves 20% of the town not covered within 8 minutes, which is also frightening. But there was no site that could fill that gap. It wasn't until you looked at a much finer, faster response time. If you looked at 2 minutes, which is not part of a national standard, then the fire station, the Armory, was significantly below that. But with the national standards, it met that threshold. It's always good to have faster response times. So that's obviously has weighed heavily on the public safety building committee, and also the space that the armory's on would still, I think, leave them with a smaller building than they would want to have for sort of long-term use. They foresee they may need bigger, newer equipment at some time in the future. There might be more people working there, and rather than have a third station in the town, they're looking to have this one big enough that they can expand into it. Which makes sense
to me. Makes sense for me as a taxpayer. It makes sense for me for the types of committees, and I hope that the conversation can move forward, because it just seems that these issues get discussed, as my good friend Ed DeFelice would say, in terms of it just stays on the shelf and it doesn't move. And so I'm starting to agree, at least on that issue, with Ed DeFelice.
Yeah, with regard to the land that some people refer to as Fano Drive or Line Lumber Road.
Road.
Yeah, this is property that was deeded to the schools for the purpose of building a junior high school, and they are currently working through their own, sort of doing their own paperwork, trying to get through some grants to build either an elementary school or some sort of a combined facility. I don't think they've ultimately decided what they wanted to do. But there was that area has good response time too for a fire station, so there was some interest in it. There was an article for fire station that's been withdrawn, so we're not going to do that this time. We're going to try and do that for a special. There's also another article, a petitioned article, that was looking to have town meeting decide whether or not that land could be used for a fire station.
Right.
Which is, I think it's fair to ask the town how they want land to be used. It's within town meeting's right to have a say in this. On the other hand, it really undermines an important project that the schools are in the middle of doing. If they had no plans in the foreseeable future, this might be a much more reasonable question to ask. But they do have very definite plans, and they also have they have, I think they're one of 30 schools or towns that have made it through this grant process to the point where they are. So it's really not a good time for this. And as my understanding is that article has also been withdrawn, so that town meeting won't ultimately have to.
Oh, okay. Well, it is a debate. I know I was involved with the conversation around the high school and dealing with the school building committee. So I know that what it takes in order for any town's desires to do something as far as building a school to really float to the top. And it's not easy, and it's timing, but I think it's high time. I'll just put my 2 cents in that we resolve that Station 1 issue and get a complex somewhere that those men and women that are there have just been toiling under a situation which I believe is unbearable. I toured that facility, and I just want to emphasize my support for those men and women who serve at Station 1.
The one of the very first town meetings I was involved in as a select board member, I guess it would have been the second one, in a special. We tried to move through some fire station. We had town-owned property we could build it on, and we wanted the perfect to not be the enemy of the good, and we tried to get that through town meeting, and it was ultimately rejected. It's not to say that we could have done it faster, though we could have. It was right next to the armory, and so once again, the response times may not have been appropriate. And I think town meeting ultimately made the right choice in wanting us to take a slower, a more systematic approach to looking at how to address this. So it did take a little longer, but I think we are definitely heading in the right direction, and we're much closer, I think, than we've been in the last 97 years.
I'm looking forward to the groundbreaking. Our time, we're having such a great conversation. I know our time is moving along, and I'm keeping an eye on the clock because I certainly don't want Roy to take me off as the host. So let me go through two of my other issues that I have. I'm not going to be able to go through the three of them. One is, as always, one of the concerns has been for me in this town is the lack of diversity that exists both on the town side and the school side, and diversity in many forms, but particularly in terms of Black and brown people and persons with disabilities. I don't know that we knowingly, or at least I'm not aware of any. raised the issue for some time, tried to address that at least to some extent when I was there as interim town manager. I don't think that the town has a affirmative action policy in place, a diversity policy in place, whatever is the word of the 21st century. As a selectman, because it would fall into your purview in order to direct the town manager, what can we do? What should we do? What would you recommend in that regard to try to address that? Because I don't think there's the one person I know that was in African-American woman that was in the town. I think she's retired. So as far as I know, there's no person of color that works in the in town hall anyway.
Yeah, well, as painful as COVID has been for everybody, I think the one thing that's really one of the really good things that's come out of our time to sit in our houses and reflect is really the awakening that we experienced last summer, and a lot of it had to do with the relationship of people of different races in America. And I think people really woke up in a big way, in an important way that we can't ignore. We have to use that momentum to move forward. And I think the things you're describing are essential to our health as a community. Is that everyone here see examples and understand that we are all equal, and we all are both as beautiful and as miserable as as one another, and that we deserve this. We really, people of color deserve to feel safe and loved in their communities. And if they feel like they aren't really being included in any meaningful way, then that doesn't happen. One of the really wonderful things that happened as a result of this is that I saw a lot of people of color getting involved in town meeting, which is sort of one of your first major steps in I think in how we capitalize on this moment. Getting people involved in government, getting them to represent the community, because they're going to see things that maybe I wouldn't see, or white people wouldn't see, especially white men. We have blinders on sometimes to other people's feelings. We all do, and it's important that people who understand it better tell us, and that we listen. And so I think that's really instrumental in setting our town down a good path. We need to see that in other boards and committees. We need to see that on the school committee. We need to see diversity on the select board. We need to see it everywhere, and certainly in our town government. Step one has to be, as far as our labor force goes, really has to, in order to know if we're making progress, we still first have to know where we currently stand. Right? We need to get a record of what our demographics are within the town hall, within the school system. And to the extent that we can't dive too far into the school system's way of working, but for the town side, we need to get the demographics, we need to get the data, and then we need to absolutely devise a plan that takes into consideration the fact that perfectly qualified candidates are maybe not going to be considered for roles in our town government, which is not acceptable.
Well, thank you. I hope that you do that. That's been something, again, that I know has been absent in terms of having that affirmative action policy in place. Having done that demographic study, I have raised that question offline to folks to get that type of answer. And I think that it may also look at, if you're going to get diversity, then you got to be looking in diverse places. You just can't be looking down the street if the diversity doesn't exist down that particular street. So that's good. But in the few moments that we have, now would be the appropriate time. So why do you want to take this great job that keeps you out at night, you can't satisfy and please everybody, and so therefore, there are those who love Select Board Member Cavey, and those who love Select Board Cavey less. So, why do you want to have another term as I guess what is it, 3-year term, 2-year term?
3-year.
3-year term as a Select Board member.
Well, in my when I first was elected, it was under very contentious circumstances. But one of the things I've done from the beginning is really try to reach out to people who would not naturally sort of be, supporters, because I really do want them to also have a voice in this town, even if they disagree with me. I want them to have that opportunity. It's certainly their rights, and I respect the differences of opinion. So I understand that even, maybe I wasn't always successful. Sometimes I feel like I was. At the end of the day, finding all of these different pockets and communities and different, sort of groups that all seem to, have similarities that they share, either politically or culturally, and sort of working with them to get everyone in a good place. It's very rewarding, just to be able to get. You can't get everybody. It never happens. Even the most uncontroversial article ever presented to town meeting still has 2 or 3 voting no. To give like a $100 tax break to veterans somehow still have 2 people saying no. But you can getting a lot of people on board with something that's going to benefit us all is extremely rewarding. I've learned a lot over these last couple of years. I feel like I came in with some skills that would be helpful, but I have really grown a lot to sort of understand how to use them in a way that really brings everybody together, and building up these teams of very diverse people with very different views. We've been successful a number of times, and it's extremely rewarding. I would love to keep on doing it.
Well, I have to say this, and I know as we're coming to the close, I want to first thank you, but I want to say that rancor that you talked about, that when you came into the board, has definitely dissipated. You are gentlemen and gentlewomen in the way that you handle your discourse and you handle the meetings. That has been refreshing, particularly after what we've seen on the national level in terms of the discourse. So to have a better discourse on the local level has been refreshing. So I wish you well in your candidacy. And if that is the case, we would hope to have you come back on the program, community forum, and have a further conversation with me. So take care. Take care. I see those instruments behind you. At some point in time, we may have to have you put together a concert for us so we can hear how you play. So take care, Mr. Select Board Member Stephen Cavey.
Be well. Thank you so much.